Alrighty. Welcome back to our podcast, Life at 2030. If you have stuck around this far, we're so glad that you've decided to stick around with our craziness as it is. I'm really excited for this episode. We're talking about teenage drivers, and poor Dad has built himself up for this one. We decided, you're hearing Cliff right now. We're going to have him introduce himself. This Cliff is the second boy in the family, and you and I have had some great times with vehicles. That's why we really needed you to come on today and talk about this. So Cliff, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Cliff Carling, and what else do you want to know? I don't know. I'm 40, and I love life. I'm married, 3 wonderful kids, wonderful wife. And I like
cars.
Football and cars. Yep, that's about it.
You absolutely love cars.
Yep.
Cliff, tell us about last night. What happened?
Well, we were talking about all our crazy car stories, and then got into kind of another one. We borrowed a buddy's Razor, took it up the hill, came back down, blew a belt, and we have just another story to tell.
Yeah. And my favorite thing in the world are moths. And we were driving in the dark, and this windshield is a half windshield.
Yep.
So all the air's coming at you. And I noticed moths, and I'm like, Cliff, I hate these things. And they're coming.
We scared poor Julie. I'm sorry. I'm still sorry. Crazy things happen when Carlings get into cars.
It's so true. And what the irony of it is Dad was a professional driver for 40 years.
Yep.
So, Dad, I'm really becoming, I respect you a whole lot more as a parent, and I'm not a professional driver, but you are, watching my 2 teenagers. So when we were living in Bozeman, Jake and Emily were learning how to drive. And in Bozeman, I love you, Bozeman, but you don't plow your roads. So my kids, they learned. It was scary. The roads were white in the winter for at least a couple months, and so that's when Jake and Emily both took driver's ed, and we white knuckled the whole time they drove. But they did well, and they've learned how to be really good drivers. So how in the world did you handle? You had four teenagers, no, 5 learn how to drive. Allison, she tried to drive.
Well, Allison drove once.
She drove once, yes.
Go very good.
He did in Allison in the Scoot episode. We heard all about Allison.
Do you want to hear the Allison episode? Melba went to the bank, and in the Mercedes-Benz, it was a 4-speed. And she left Jeff and Allison in the car, Allison in the front seat and Jeff in the back. And the parking lot at the bank is higher on either end and sloped down to the middle. And so while they were in there, Allison noticed that the gear shifter was kind of tight, so she decided to relax the gear shifter. And as she relaxed it, it went to neutral, and the car went backwards, and Jeff ducked down to get his arm under the seatbelt because he knew they were going to crash, and they did. They crashed into a truck that was coming into the driveway.
At a blazing, 3 miles an hour?
2-3 miles an hour.
And she said, I'm not going to drive anymore.
So that was Allison's driving experience.
Beginning
driving
to end.
once, crashed once, and we replaced a door on a truck.
So that's what it was like, you being a professional driver and watching your kids drive.
Well, I think the key is to don't have a car you like. Buy cars that are old, that if they crash, you don't cry.
Already beat up.
And already beat up cars that, the whole point is to buy a car that's big so they will protect the kids as much as possible.
Even though we didn't appreciate the huge cars, right?
Oh, Cliff loved the huge cars.
Yeah, as long as no one saw me.
You guys loved the old Dodge station wagon where the rear seat was facing
awesome.
backwards.
Yep.
That one was fun. Did you have a favorite car that we've owned?
I liked that car.
The station wagon?
Yeah, except one day Cliff and Jim were messing with the tailgate, and they slammed it down, and there were the Dodge emblems in the back fell on the ground, all of them. So I handed him the emblems and some silicone, and I said, guys, put these back. Well, my only mistake was I didn't tell him how to spell Dodge. So from then on, we drove a car that was a Godot.
Are you serious? I don't remember that.
Yep, the old Godot
The old Godot.
with the suicide seat.
When I went out and saw that they siliconed them in random order, didn't say Dodge, it said Godot.
That is right
Oh,
there.
well. Sorry.
Kids and cars right there.
Kids and cars, just make the cars safe. Old cars, let them go at it.
But Cliff, your son Jax loves cars, and he would have spelled it right.
He would have.
He would have.
He absolutely would have spelled it right. Absolutely. He loves cars, and he would have corrected us had he been out there.
You'll have to have him listen to this.
We will.
So, Dad, tell us a little bit about your experience growing up and driving. You have a couple things. You got to drive a limo. You got to drive a motorcycle.
Remember that?
You got to drive the Comet. Those were just a few things that I didn't warn you beforehand.
Yeah, the old well, when I was a president,
David O. McKay.
David O. McKay passed away, and my parents got a call from the church. I was a scout and able to drive, and President McKay had made the request that he wanted Eagle Scouts to drive the funeral procession cars. And so I got a call, and they asked me if I would come and drive, and I sat on the front row on the north side of the tabernacle, and I drove his oldest son, who was a doctor. I don't remember his name. I drove him and the family in a limousine up to the cemetery and then back to church headquarters where they all ate. And so that was a good experience. I've driven motorcycles, got hit by a car.
Yeah, we'll be going into that one soon if you're willing to tell that story. Not today, but don't worry, he'll tell it.
That's a 2-episoder right there.
And then you had fun with the Comet with the garage door.
Right. Well, I inherited an old Comet from Grandma, and the floorboards were rusted out. So it was kind of like a Flintstone mobile. You could have stopped it by sticking your foot through the hole. And I came in to park it in front of the garage one day, and the brake went to the floor, and I ricocheted off the garage door. And come to find out that one of the brake cylinders had popped, and all the fluid was gone.
Oh,
Oh no.
he was trying to stop Flintstone style.
So I
Didn't
couldn't
work.
get my foot through the hole quick enough, which was probably a good idea. But when we delivered newspapers or when you drove in the snow, you had to watch it because snow and slush would come up on you.
And once Mom, she let us, Sherry and I, one time. She's like, I'll go really slow and you can stick your feet through the hole and run along the road. And we did it one time, and then she's like, I can never do that again because you're going to hurt yourself. We begged her every time. So, Cliff, you and I have had a lot of experiences together
Yep.
with our cars.
Yep.
And, you know, I was telling John the other day, I am not a self-proclaimed really good driver at all. And my kids will say that. And my guardian angels are so tired whenever I drive. And
Not true.
Just-
Not true.
just
But
do my
okay.
best,
Yep.
seriously. But I think we all have guardian angels, and you and I probably the most.
Mhm.
So I would drive Cliff to work, and every day we went to Hinckley Dodge and worked. And one day, just driving to work, and this lady rear ends us, and Cliff was so calm. He just kind of turns to me and he's like, "What was that?" You had no idea.
Well,
what
I've
just
got
happened.
I've got a lot of weight on you, and so it probably didn't affect me as much. But that was weird because we were just coming to a stop, and then you just felt it lurch a little bit. So kind of an interesting.
So that was like our first experience together.
The first of many. The first of many.
And then tell me about Hinkley Dodge when you were the runner.
So that was one of my, well, no, it wasn't. Well, I can't remember when I started there, but that was one of the first jobs I have. I was like 16 or 17, something like that. And I would go to the bank and the DMV and all that, and I would take one of the cars on the lot. So I was in a Neon, a Dodge Neon, which is a tiny car, and it was snowy, and somebody rear-ended me, and I got squished in between a Ford Explorer and a Dodge Ram truck. And I
in
called,
a Neon.
yeah, in a Neon. So I got out. Everybody was okay, thank heaven, and went to one of the guys that hit me and said, "Hey, can I borrow your phone? I need to call Julie real quick or someone." So I called and got Julie, and I said, "Hey, I was in a wreck. Can you come get me or send somebody to come get me?" And she's like, "Cliff, what's going on for real?" And I'm like, "I got in a wreck." And she wouldn't believe me. And in all fairness, I wouldn't have believed me either.
You had joked so many times with us that I was
Right.
like, "Whatever, Cliff, just come back to
Yep.
work." And you're like, "Come talk to the guy here.
Yep.
Here, I'll put him on right now." And the guy's like, "Yeah, legit, he got in a
You
wreck."
got in a wreck.
Oh, sorry, Cliff, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm the boy who cried wolf, so it's my fault. I deserve it. But we ended up wrinkling a car, yeah. But we're okay. It was funny.
We're obviously okay right now,
Yep.
at least, right? Our guardian angels are working hard. So the Dodge Aries was my favorite. We had an 83 Dodge Aries. I think you and Mom, Dad, you bought it for $500.
400.
I took
That's
it
awesome.
everywhere.
I wouldn't have spent $500 on that.
It was this light cream colored car, just a little square box. And I think that we loved it so much because it was a tiny car. And I had never known a tiny car at all. And the Aries had a
It
lot
was
of
called
problems.
a mid-sized.
At the time.
Yes.
At the time.
That car constantly broke down. And
It
at one
did?
point,
I don't ever remember that. Probably because I wasn't responsible.
Well, it never actually broke down. It just
just little things. Well,
didn't
hold
want
on.
to run or didn't
It
want
didn't
to
run good to begin with. No, it never broke down.
It was
Julie's like, oh.
it was terminal most of the time.
It was always broke.
It was
never
never
fixed
okay.
No, that's how fast it's supposed to be.
So one morning, Cliff and Sherry were just so embarrassed because the brake lights were out, the signal lights were out, and so I had to stick my arm out every time I hit the brakes or signal to turn. And we're going up to the high school, and every time I stick my arm out the window, Cliff and Sherry would dive down on the seats, especially when we turned into the high school parking lot. But not only were the lights out, whenever we were idling at a stoplight, I had to rev the gas and hit the brake at the same time so it wouldn't die. And that day, I was just like, I can't do this. And Cliff and Sherry were like, "We're taking the bus home." And I think you did, actually. So that was one of the fun things. And then on the way back every day, when you had a certain route, we would pick you up.
30s.
At 30s.
30s.
That was our
fun.
favorite.
That was fun.
And then I was dating a guy and the car all of a sudden smelled so bad. I could not figure out what was happening. I looked
Are you
everywhere.
sure that was the Aries?
That was you, Cliff.
Was it the blue Dodge?
That was the Aries.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Go
Because
ahead.
I thought I left the windows down and a cat marked its
Well, the
territory.
Aries smelled bad all the time anyway.
This was a remarkable smell. And then I picked up Cliff from school and he smelled the car and he started laughing so hard. Why, Cliff? Why were you laughing?
Well, I was bitter, okay, because Julie would hang out with me and Brandon all the time, and then she gets this boyfriend, and we don't like the guy, right? Perfectly nice guy, nothing wrong with him, but we want Julie to ourselves. So, like, you know what? Fine, you ain't gonna hang with us. We're gonna booby trap this thing. So, cracked open a kipper, like a little, I don't know who listens to this, but it's like a little can of herring that's been like smoked. Anyway, stuck that deep under the seat so she couldn't see it and let it bake.
For like a month.
Yep,
I couldn't
and it
figure
worked.
out what it was. And then you pull it out after you're laughing. You pull it out, and I'm just like, Cliff!
Really bad. Oh, that was nasty.
And in this car, okay, Dad's going to get to this one soon, I promise you. But this one was also my favorite. I took Cliff and Brandon to 7-Eleven, and the car was, the headlights were pointed right at the store clerk, so I turned the headlights off. Like, okay, I'll turn it back on in a minute. Never did. Got pulled over by the police, heading home. And as soon as I got pulled over and I come to a full stop, Cliff dives in the back seat. He just lays down, and the cop comes up with a big floodlight. What's in your hands? Raise your hands. And Cliff raises his hands with this innocent look on his face, and he's like, red cream soda?
I got my red cream soda.
He's like, do you want some? And so the policeman
I
takes
did
the
offer
light
him.
off. You were nice. He took the light off of you, and then you were like,
Woo.
So then I explained, I turned my lights off. Sorry, I'm not a drunk driver. As soon as we pull away, Brandon and I turn around. Cliff, what is wrong with you?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
So Cliff, tell us about the red car and the Mercedes.
Well, Dad's good at picking out cars because you either, like he mentioned earlier, you want them to be safe for your kids. So there's two different thoughts. One of them is the Aries that you couldn't spin it out in snow. It was so light. If you got into a wreck, you would just bounce off of whoever. You're not going to get hurt no matter what in that car. The other thought is get a massive car. And I mean,
The LTD.
Yep. When you turn on a 21st South, the nose of the car's almost in Nevada. That's how long it is.
Two couches.
Yep.
And cars were bouncing off of you.
Exactly. And that car was awesome. 74.
74, yeah.
Ford LTD with a 351 Cleveland for all those car folks out there.
And it was red.
Sounded mean. It was reddish.
What does that mean?
Well, it
With
was
a whitish
red.
vinyl top.
It was awesome, and I would kill to have that car now.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was red when it originally got painted, and then life took over and it faded out a little bit. But it had a white vinyl top, and it was an awesome car. It sounded mean. I mean, when you hit the gas, it rumbled and it was mean. It didn't go that fast, but it sounded cool. And the inside was easily the most comfortable car you will ever ride. The front was a couch and the back was a couch.
Yes.
I don't know how else to explain it, but that car was awesome. But when you go to high school, it's a little less awesome.
And when the vinyl's peeling off, it's less
Well,
awesome.
it was my fault.
Cliff peeling the
I was the
vinyl
one.
off.
I would get bored and roll the window down and peel the vinyl when I was driving. I don't know why. Anyway, so that was a fun car. And when Mom and Dad let me drive that to school, I would always park. Highland High has a huge parking lot. There's a million places you could park at Highland. Down by the field, you can park up in the main lot, back where the people smoke. Whatever. There's plenty of places to park there. But I parked across the street and way south of the seminary building, right in front of a lady's house. And I did get permission from her. She said I could park there as long as I would shovel her driveway and car when it snowed really bad. So we had an agreement. I got to drive the car and had a good safe spot where nobody could see me.
That's how it works.
Yep.
And nowadays, you would have proudly parked right in the middle of that parking lot.
I don't know why I didn't. That car was awesome.
The
Awesome
Mercedes was really awesome too.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a 69, 65?
It was a 75 Mercedes 240D. I bought from a wrecking yard because it was impounded.
And didn't they take you to the guy?
The owner took me to court to try and get the Mercedes back, and the judge wanted me to describe the Mercedes. I told him it was a beautiful dark blue. It was a nice car, but it had no power. He says, "What do you mean no power?" And I said, "Well, we call it a Rolls Canardly. Rolls down one hill and can hardly make it up the next."
In first gear.
And it was a 4-speed diesel. So
No
if
turbo.
you
No turbo.
didn't like the person behind you, all you had to do was downshift and they couldn't see you anymore.
Massive puff.
And
of
Cliff
smoke.
and I went up to the Bountiful Temple up 1800 South, which is a steep hill. We had to downshift about 12 times to get to the top of the hill.
And we're not talking third and fourth. We're talking first and second.
Right. And the black smoke wasn't even dissipated when we got done with the temple. So
Bountiful didn't know what hit it.
But there's one thing we forgot to talk about. Cliff and white cars.
Oh, yeah.
Any white car that Cliff bought got totaled.
White Japanese cars.
First of all, he got hit, and he'd make about $1,500 because he wouldn't fix it. And then a month or two later, it would get totaled. So he ended up making more money off these Japanese cars than Hondas and Toyotas and Nissans.
And yeah, exactly. And I don't know if Dad ever believed me. And one day, I had a white, that was the Toyota, right? Camry.
Right.
Parked across the street, and the mailman backs
My
into
mailman
car,
backed into his white car on a snowy day.
and he didn't do anything. He pulled forward, so he did his route, came back around, and we're like, "Hey, did you hit that?" And he goes, I just gave it a Jersey bump." So we let him go. I had already made plenty on that car.
Oh, and then you had a white electric car that broke down on the freeway.
Oh, natural gas.
Natural gas.
That you helped me with, yes.
That was crazy.
That was fun.
Like,
We'd flip
please come
cars.
pick me up off of the freeway.
Yeah.
Most of my kids in the cars had natural gas.
Yep, very much.
Okay, you guys
But
have to talk about. Oh, sorry. Go
The
ahead.
back of the Dodge window would roll down, remember? So
Right.
you
The
could
Dodge,
tailgate.
the Dodge station wagon, the back seat faced backwards, and the back window rolled down, so the kids could wave at all the people who were behind me.
And if it got too stuffy, they could crack the window down, and we would vacate.
And they threw things out at people.
What?
Did?
That was the
Kind
best
of.
car to go over
You
the
weren't
wee
supposed to know
bumps
that.
to Delta.
Yep.
That was the best. Okay, we have to talk about our two classic stories, our family stories that we always tell.
Uh-oh.
With Cliff and Jim. Dad, the door won't shut.
Oh yeah, Saturday morning. Cliff and Jim are out in the
Honda.
Honda Accord delivering
Two-door.
newspapers.
Mm-hmm. That was an
Two-door.
82-ish?
Yeah, 82,
It
83.
was old. It was awesome, but it was old. What did I do?
And they came in, Mom and I were still in bed, and they came in and they said, "Dad, the door won't shut." And I said, "Well, just slam it."
That was not an untruth at all. That was the absolute truth.
I said,
it
"Why
wasn't the
won't
whole
it?"
truth.
I
but
said,
that was
"Why
the
won't
truth.
it shut?" He says, "It won't shut." I'm like, "What happened?" He says, "It just won't shut. Come fix it." So I'm thinking the latch is frozen or something. I go out there, the door is hanging on the ground,
Facing the wrong way.
facing the front of the car. And I'm like, "Of course the door won't shut," and drag it on the ground. So I said, "What happened?" And Jim said, "It's Cliff's fault." I said, "Well, you were driving." He says, "Well, Cliff didn't shut the door, so I backed up to tell him to shut it, and I hit a snowbank."
And peeled the door all the way forward.
So I looked at it, and the door jamb was bent out, so I went and I got a hammer, and I shoved the hammer in the door jamb, and I started slamming the door. And it pushed the door jamb right back perfectly to where it needed to be with about 10 good slams of the door. I took the hammer out, I shut the door and said, "There you go."
Now, Cliff, we never asked you, where did it happen? And then you drove home with the door hanging.
It was at Gladys Curtis's house, so right behind ours over on West Temple.
Super close.
Very first delivery. Very first delivery. And I had 2 papers, and one went to her and one went 2 down. So instead of getting in and out, I just grabbed 2, went there, left the door open, and Jim, "Hey, buddy! Shut the door!" That was all his fault. He drove.
See, your vision of the door won't shut isn't that the door's dragging on the ground.
You hope so anyway. That's not
But
the
again,
case.
that was the truth. We didn't lie to you
See,
at all.
we never believed you, Cliff. That's
But
why.
delivering papers was kind of dangerous because we used to do it in a pickup truck, and they would sit on the tailgate, and sometimes we'd go around the corner or stop too fast, and we lost kids off the back of the truck.
Yeah, Jim said that he was falling off, and he looked at Cliff and said, "See you later."
And there was no more Jim. And that was at the Twin Pine condos. And Dad looks back and goes, "Where's Jim?" We dumped him about a block back.
He's running.
Yeah, poor Jim got catapulted off. That was fun.
Poor Jim. Yeah, we're going to talk
I'm
about
surprised
him.
any of my kids lived.
We made it. We made it.
So, this one is the other classic with the nothing fell off. Oh, it's painful to talk about. I was taking my friend Lois and Ruth and Lisa, or all 3, to Provo. And I don't know, it was dark. I was trying to turn, and Lois said, "Turn here." So I turn, and I'm going the wrong direction all of a sudden. And so the car is coming at us, so I hurry and go into the other lane, into the Smith's parking lot. But in order to do that, I had to go over this incredibly tall island. And the entire bottom of the car scraped just terribly the whole way across. And I was like, "Oh no." Got to the parking lot, inspected stuff, and I was like, "Well, it's all in one piece." So I get home and tell Dad about it. Go ahead, Dad.
Well, she comes in and she says, "Well, I got lost and I ran over an island, but nothing fell off." And I'm thinking, if your criteria is that nothing fell off.
That's a good day.
And about 3 weeks later, the front CV joint blew out of that car. So nothing fell off, but something got badly bent.
Yes. And that was a funny story in itself, too.
She was taking my son-in-law's mother home when it blew up. Her car had broke, so she called us to take her home. Our car blew up.
I'm driving her, and all of a sudden it's lurching one tire over this, and it's boom, boom. And so she's like, "What is happening?" We hurry and go. I just turn as fast as I can into the gas station, call Dad. So she calls Johnny, and he comes and gets her, and he's like, "We'll see you later." No, actually, he helped us. Because you figured
We
out,
had to push it to Uncle Dale's shop, which was just a half a block down the road.
which was a miracle that it
Awesome.
happened right there.
So we pushed the car there, and then with our lone leftover car, we came home.
Our last car. Yeah, I'm glad Johnny came and got his mom, because I think she didn't want any more to do with us after that. It's just us and cars, that's
Yep.
all. And I remember in the Aries, it was so snowy one day, and I made it to the business college up in the avenues, up many hills, very steep hills, and it was no problem. And I get there, and no one is there. And so I'm like, "Dang it, car, you're the only one that can make it." So, and then
That
I
was
was
awesome.
driving with Allison, and I was like, "Allison, I want to see how close I can come to this garbage can without hitting it." So then I barely tap it.
See the criteria. Let's see how close we can come without hitting it.
But you don't know how close you are until you hit it. Did you send her out to look?
And you don't want to do these things with Allison because Allison comes home and tells everything.
And
Yep.
makes it this huge story. Julie ran into the garbage can, and I'm like, I tapped it, okay?
Allison says,
Yeah.
Julie's going really fast at this garbage can to see how close she can come, and we hit it.
And I'm just like, I barely touch it.
But
yet
you
it's this
did
big
hit it.
story.
It's true because Allison will tell, and the other problem with that one is Allison thinks everything's a good idea. Let's go skydiving, Allison. Sounds good. So you can't base your judgment off what she thinks. But anyway,
That's awesome. And Dad said I have to tell this story. Jake was a newborn, and he was very colicky. And my dad said, "Okay, I'll watch him."
Jake hated the car.
Jake
You put him in a
hated
car
it.
seat, he screamed all the time.
And then there was one time you watched. I'm getting off track just a little bit. It's so funny. You and Sherry were watching Jake when he was colicky, and you guys thought he must be thirsty, so you start giving him water through a turkey baster. He's like 2 months old.
Well, we didn't have the right equipment.
It was so
Yep.
funny. And so I needed to take John lunch. I needed a break. It was 10 minutes to his work. But I was really nervous too because I left Jake with Dad and I knew he was going to scream, and Jake too. No, just kidding. So I'm waiting forever to turn right, and I had looked left initially, and then I'm looking right. I looked right initially, then I'm looking left forever until all the traffic clears. And as soon as the traffic clears, I face forward and hit the gas, and there's this guy on my windshield. I hurry and hit the brakes, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, and he falls off the car, and I put it in park and run out and help him up, and I'm like, can I give you a hug? And I'm like, do I need to take you to the doctor? Are you okay? And he brushes himself off. I'm okay, and he looked pretty perturbed and walked away. So I get in the car and back up really fast, and I run in the house. I'm so in shock. I run and jump on my dad's lap, and I'm bawling. And he's just like, what's happening? And I'm just like, Dad, I hit this guy. And then Dad gets really stiff. Wait, what? Is he still on the road?
Did you leave him there?
What's happening? He's trying, I can't talk, I'm just crying. And Dad's like imagining this guy dead on the road. And I finally get words out. Dad's like, use your words. And I'm like, no, he's fine. He walked away. I hugged him, and Dad's like, you hugged him?
Dad was like, he wasn't in a car.
Yeah, so Dad was like, okay, we'll try again, but look both ways. So then I took John lunch and got a big hug from John. And
Usually both ways means left and right. Julie needs to look left, right, forward, and back.
yes. So the only, out of all your teenagers that drove and were practicing driving, Jim was the only one that actually crashed. Like full on crashed a car, the orange truck.
Yeah, a guy turned in front of him and at 5th South and 3rd West or West Temple, I don't remember. But a guy turned in front of Jim, and Jim hit the truck and totaled the little pickup truck that we had, and
Courier.
a little Ford Courier. Jim was okay. Truck was totaled.
That was scary for all of us. That was our first experience with that.
Yeah.
And so I remember, so when we took driver's ed, it was just the class. Maybe you practiced 4 times to drive and
I think
didn't
I
have
did
to.
twice.
Did you?
I drove for like a total of maybe 20 minutes.
And then they didn't require all these hours to practice before you
Right.
got your license. So here, drive 2 times, Cliff. Here's your driver's license.
That's how it was. Yeah.
Now, Paul, it's up to you to make sure he doesn't kill himself. Good luck, right?
Right. Driver's ed was sucky back then.
I remember I used to tailgate really, really bad, and you had to. You.
I
weren't
know the
driving with me.
floorboard on my side where I was bent in.
Yeah.
If I could have had a break, I would have.
I think you should have with all of us, and you were very patient in trying to teach us. Hey, that's just not okay. I know you really like to kiss their bottom, but you can't
Nope.
because it's not safe.
Well, the thing I appreciated is they usually told me when they hit something. Except Sherry. Someone tattled on her when the LTD, she took out Jones' tree.
Yeah.
She crashed into a huge elm tree backing up, and we pulled bark out of the bumper for as long as we had years.
Yeah.
Didn't hurt the car at all.
Nope.
The tree got hurt there.
She absolutely did that. And Jeff was pretty mild. All he did was back the car into a basketball hoop. Like the pole, right? And the bumper got...
Right.
I don't remember that.
Well, I said, what happened to the bumper of this car? And Mom said, I have no idea. And it was a little while later that Jeff said, oh yeah, I hit the bumper, but I didn't hurt anything. And then Sam's out there playing basketball, and Sam goes to dunk it, and the whole basketball standard broke.
Was that because he hit it? Because Jeff hit it?
I don't know, but it broke right at ground level. And Sam's hollering, and I go out there, and Sam's holding the basketball. The standard's filled with cement. So Sam's holding it, and it's got a little hole in the top of the Camry. So Sam and I together throw it over on the side. So
Wow.
Holy cow.
Trying to protect that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so you got more responsibility. See, with Jake and Emily, they had to drive 50 hours. So many hours at night, so many in the day, so many hours on the freeway. And so that was pretty fun and interesting.
I was maybe 20 minutes. No joke. I don't even know if I got that much.
Well, I think that's a good thing that they're doing that now. And I know that the kids complain and stuff, but it makes them for better drivers.
well, driver's ed back when you guys were there was just old cars and buy new ones.
And old
Yep.
teachers,
Yeah,
old retired coaches.
true. That's exactly what it was.
The guy they couldn't figure out what to do with, they made him driver's ed instructor. Because he was already on Valium.
My driver's ed instructor actually had to use his brake because he said, okay, we're going to take this exit. And I guess it didn't register, or I even understood that taking an exit from a freeway meant you had to slow down. And I'm going 65, and this stop sign is maybe 20 feet from us. And I'm like, oh, I need to slow down. And so he had to hit his brake, and I hit my brake. And yeah, that was fun. Oh my gosh. So, Dad, that was a huge deal for you, the way that people drove when you drove the bus, because they would weave in and out in front of you. And what was the advice that you were always trying to tell these drivers all around you?
Don't be in such a hurry. I mean, people in their cars are only concerned with themselves. They don't see anything around them. And you don't see anything if it can hurt you. That's why people don't see motorcycles. Because a motorcycle can't hurt them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
True.
And the worst ones are skiers. Going up the canyons. I was driving the ski bus up Little Cottonwood Canyon, and a Saab with 3 teenage kids in it passed me. By the time they got to the top of the Sisters, I was part way up. They rolled their car off the side of the road. And they jumped out and grabbed their skis out of the trunk and tried to flag me down just to get to the resort. They were going to leave their car there on the side of the road, go skiing, and then deal with it later. But the road was too slick. I couldn't stop.
Whoa.
and people didn't understand that with the bus. That the bus
Right, I
is
told
so
them I
big.
can't stop. It's too steep here. The guys are okay. I'll just call Canyon Patrol. They'll go down and take care of them.
Oh man.
Otherwise, I would have been stuck in the middle of the road.
Well, I'm curious, what would you tell teenage drivers that are learning right now how to drive? What would your advice be as a professional driver?
Don't.
If you're thinking about it,
Don't
just
do
don't
it.
do it.
Don't. Yeah. As a teenager, if you consider that the majority, that 49% of the accidents are caused by the age group of 16 to 24. And then that percentage doubles if there's another 16 to 24 person in it. And then it doubles again if they're on cell phones. So you're well over 100% you're going to crash if you got two teenagers in the car with a cell phone.
Yep.
So if cell phones were back in the day when you drove, Cliff, would you and Brandon have most definitely crashed?
Yep. Absolutely.
And the problem is
100%.
teenagers are invincible. They don't realize they can die. They don't realize the impact that a car has, the sheer weight
The force a car has.
and what it can do and speed. And they're just not thinking. They're teenagers. That's their job, not to think.
Right.
And they do it very well. And so our job is to try and keep them alive.
Even when you and Mom said, "Hey, you can take the car to school, just don't take your
Right,
friends
as long
to
as
lunch."
I don't have to go with you, I'm good.
Or if you don't take your friends to
Right,
lunch.
and every time I
Yeah.
tell you that, I would catch you going to Wendy's with your friends in the car.
That was Sherry, by the way. I never did. I was the good kid. No, no, she was good too. But it was
Right.
just Cliff and Sherry that you caught, right?
You caught Sherry?
Yes,
Yeah.
Sherry was at the McDonald's on 13th East with a bunch of her friends in the car at lunchtime, and I'm driving the bus. The least she could have done is figured out what time I drove by.
Same with me.
Same with you.
Exact same. But again, teenagers are not paid to think.
Right, they're not paid to think. They
so
don't.
we don't think. Yeah, I remember that. How many buses would you say at noon are floating around Salt Lake? 100?
In Salt Lake City, oh, easy.
Easy 100.
In the valley here, probably 240, 250
All right,
buses.
so I'm with my buddy Byron Stuckey, and I have been told repeatedly because my dad knows these stats. You can take the car, do not go to lunch with your friends. And of course, I just don't hear that. The only thing I hear is you can take the car. That's it. So I get in. Let's go get some Wendy's on 13th East, and we're waiting to turn right, and here comes a bus. And Byron knew that he was a bus driver. He goes, "That's going to be your dad." And I'm like, no, there's just absolutely no way that at this time, at this moment, in this place, that's him. And sure enough, we get up and he recognizes us before him. Because here's this bus driver in a blue shirt waving at us. Well, bus drivers don't usually do that to cars on the side. And I go, "Oh, shoot, that's Dad." And you have that feeling maybe he doesn't know it's me. No, he was waving. He was waving 100 feet before we got there because the Aries is the only one in the world painted beige and brown. And he waves and smiled, and that's the worst he could have done. If he was mad and had a mad face, that would have been fine. I'm in trouble, I know. But he was smiling and waving, and then I knew I was dead.
Oh, poor Cliff.
And Byron the rest of the day was making fun of me because we had the next two classes together. So, yep,
Dad's gonna kill you.
right.
Dad, you had the eagle eyes. You didn't miss anything. Seriously.
Well, you can't afford if you're driving, you need to be 100% driving.
And so that's
You need
what's
to look
interesting.
half a mile ahead of you because that's where the accident's going to happen.
Right, and I
Right.
think that you were born to do that, where us teenage drivers, when we were, and even now, don't even realize the ramifications of what can happen with a car, where that keeps you up at night sometimes, or it did when you were driving the bus.
Yeah.
But, well, I hope you guys had some fun listening today, with as much fun as we had telling all of these stories. Cliff, thank you
And
for
that's
coming.
like a tenth of. That's not even a tenth. Yeah. So,
There's probably a lot I don't know, and that's probably a good thing.
And Cliff will go to his grave with all of his extra stories.
yeah, that'll be our secret midnight edition podcast.
Oh, join us for that one.
Join us for late night with Julie DeYoung.
And Cliff's untold stories. Well, thanks for coming. We appreciate it. And thanks for coming, Dad. And thanks for doing all your tech awesomeness, John. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Go fight.
Have a good day. Have a good day. Have a good day.